Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, I welcome you all to the International Conference on Understanding International Migration. I extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished moderator for the session, Pedro, Lara de Arruda, fellow scholars, and participants who have joined us through Zoom and are watching us live on Facebook. We're glad to witness your presence today. This international forum aims to bring together rigorous and erudite young scholars working on migration issues from all around the world over a single platform. This conference is a full day event with 11 different sessions, with 2 sessions running parallelly throughout in the white and the green room. This conference is featuring 73 scholars from 25 different countries who will be delivering their presentations and sharing their understanding on international migration. The session is streaming live on our YouTube channel, so please feel free to share it on your social media handle with the hashtag ICUIM2021. Please do follow us on Twitter at @contact_NICE and subscribe to our YouTube channel, NICE Nepal, as well. This is the second session of the conference, and to chair and moderate this particular session, it's a real pleasure to have with us Pedro Lara de Arruda, sir, with us. Welcome, sir. Pedro Lara de Arruda is a specialist in social policies programs of the Global South, focusing on South-South cooperation. He has been a researcher at the IPC-IG since 2013. During this time, he has taken on a number of research-related roles, including providing technical support for constructing social programs in African countries, guest editing and authoring IPC-IG publications, providing technical assistance to study tours, proactively negotiating research agreements with key partners in the context of BRICS and IBSA initiatives. He holds a master's degree in international relations from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, India. So without any further ado, sir, I request you to please take the session forward. Thank you.
Thank you, very nice. Good morning, good afternoon. Depending on where you are. And thanks for the opportunity to participate on this interesting discussion. And today I'll be moderating 6 presentations on economics of international migration. I'd like to start giving two requests, placing 2 requests. First of all, I'd like to welcome the presenters and to kindly ask them to limit themselves to the 12 minutes for each presentation. I would also like to ask our audience to please notice in the lower part of your screen, there is a chat box. So please place your questions there rather than interfering or stopping any presentation. I'll be taking note of all the questions, and at the end of the presentations, we will have a question and answer session. But by all means, do forward your questions at any time through the chat box. So without further delay, I'd like to invite Dr. Junuguru Srinivas, who will be presenting on Indian diaspora's role in its development strategies. Junuguru, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I'm there with you. Can I share my PPT?
Yes, please.
Visible, right?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah, so over to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, good morning to Pedro Arruda, sir, Nepal Institute of International Cooperation team, and my dear co-panelists. First of all, let me extend my deep sense of gratitude to the NICE team for giving me this opportunity. Today, I am going to present on Indian diaspora's role in its development strategies. Basically, what is the role of Indian diaspora in development of India? So the framework of my presentation is divided like this: introduction, background, COVID-19 impact on Indian economy, Indian diaspora and developments, and some of the prospects. So basically, I'm going to focus upon, like we have witnessed the pandemic very recently, and we are going through this problem. So why I am trying to emphasize in my diaspora in my presentation, because every part of the world and every global economy and many of the global institutions now got like affected through this pandemic. So in the process of making a smart policies within the domestic economic policies, a country should also like focus upon the external economic policy. So in the process, we should, I think, focus upon diaspora. Why? Because the diaspora is having a lot of resources in terms of social, political, cultural, economic. So if Indian government could focus upon the resource of Indian diaspora, they will contribute more for the development of India. So that is what I'm going to present in my presentation. So in introduction, Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Pravasi Bharatiya Divas in 2019 said that Indian diaspora plays a very crucial role in India's development at all levels, be it political, social, economical, cultural, and etc. So terming the NRIs as India's brand ambassador, PM Modi highlighted their crucial role in making India more advanced and developed. Indian diaspora acts as a link between the host and the home country and is responsible for maintaining cordial ties between two countries at all levels, particularly at the political front. Even culturally, it is the diaspora which is responsible for maintaining the rich cultural heritage of India on a foreign land, and they have been successfully doing so over the years wherever they reside. Economically, the remittances sent by the overseas Indians contribute immensely to the economic development of our nation. Socially, there are various Indian forums, organizations, and institutions in the foreign countries that play a crucial role not only in preserving the richness of the Indian culture, but also protecting the rights of those Indians residing there in case of infringement. Hence, Indian policymakers have a lot of responsibility to move the Indian diaspora to invest in the Indian economy. For that, India has to make smart policies. The research paper explores that how India can be diaspora's investment destination. The article also expands on strategies for Indian policymakers to follow or frame. So let me give a little bit of background why we need to focus upon the Indian diaspora. So before that background, at present, global society is going through a devastating situation due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic affected more than 200 countries. It is shattering the entire world in a multi-dimensional way. Further, to assess the economic impact of the novel coronavirus, the IMF's World Economic Outlook, April 2020, the Great Lockdown, underscored that due to the COVID-19 outbreak, the world economy is projected to contract by -3% in 2020, which is much worse than 2008 economic crisis. Apart from that, the World Bank's World Economic Prospect 2020 projected that the COVID-19 pandemic had struck a devastating blow to the global economy, which is going to cause a remarkable effect on the developed world, emerging market economies, and developing countries. So we have seen that progressive global group like EU was clueless while the virus disseminated across the region. Many of the EU members countries turned to inward for solution, self-help rather than regional cooperation. The institutions like the UN and other renowned global organizations are cash-strapped. Moreover, these organizations' critical agenda is security and trade in all these days. From that, the World Bank also projected that advanced economies are projected to decline by 7% in 2020. Poorly, this shrink has the potential to spill over to the outlook for emerging market and developing economies, which are also projected to contract by 2.5% as they cope with their domestic outbreaks of the virus. This is the least growth rate registering by these countries in the last 60 years. Furthermore, it is said that East Asia will grow by a scant at 0.5%. South Asia will contract by 2.7%. Sub-Saharan Africa by 2.8%. The Middle East and North Africa by 4.2%. Europe and Central Asia by 4.7%. And the Latin America by 7.2%. This trend will put many countries' people to extreme poverty and reverse the years of progress achieved by these countries. So how this the pandemic affected the Indian economy, and why we need to focus upon the Indian diaspora. So how it affected. To contain the rapid spreading of the coronavirus, on March 19, 2020, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced the Janata curfew, and on March 24, 2020, declared 21 days lockdown. Later, a series of lockdowns have been announced by the Indian government to stop the spreading of the novel virus. And who can forget the gory scenes of migrants and agony during the period of lockdown? So Vikas Doot interviewed Nagesh Kumar, who is a director at the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. While answering Vikas's question, Nagesh Kumar observed that the world trade was never recovered after the global financial crisis, as the global trade used to be around 10%. Now it is hovering around 1% to 2%. Also adding fuel to the fire, the trade wars and the WTO tax process coming to a grand halt. Now it's COVID-19, which is badly hitting the global economy. The Indian economy also enormously suffered from the pandemic. According to international management consulting firm Are the Migrant Workers, due to COVID-19 induced economic disruption, up to 135 million jobs could be a danger of loss, and more than 120 million people will be pushed into poverty in India. The worst of the pandemic will be felt by India's most vulnerable section, people's job loss, increasing poverty levels, reduced per capita income. Overall, it will lead to the steep decline of India's annual GDP rate. Maybe India's lockdown and the social distancing measures must have been reduced the rate of spread of the COVID-19 impact in the beginning. The lockdown also caused severe economic consequences. Some of the estimates suggest that the decline of India's economic activity during the lockdown is costing about 34,000 crores per day, which affected the jobs and income in major sectors. The important industries that have borne the brunt of lockdown are agriculture, auto, hospitality, travel, micro, small and medium enterprises, restaurant, real estate, and the startup ecosystem. This is what said by the Niti Aayog. It is an Indian government think tank. So then why we need to focus on Indian diaspora? So a large part of the Indian diaspora settled in North America, the EU and West Asia. As of December 2016, the Indian diaspora comprised approximately 31 million people, of which PIOs were 17 million and NRIs were 13 million, spread across 146 countries in the world. The US, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Malaysia, Myanmar, the UK, the Sri Lanka, South Africa, and Canada host an Indian diasporic population of at least 1 million each. The Indian migration to different parts of the world has long and storied history, which we know that. It is said that hundreds of years ago, Indian traders had set up various trading posts in the Persian Gulf and Southeast Asia. Later, when India came under British rule, thousands of Indians were recruited to work in the British colony plantations in and around the various parts of the world. They settled in from Fiji to Mauritius and from South Africa to the Caribbean Basin. It is said that the Indian diaspora is present in around 130 countries of the world with a total population of 27 million, different data, but different countries. However, Indians migrated into Western countries is relatively new trend. From 1916 onwards, people have migrated to those countries for better employment opportunities. For example, in 1960, there were only 12,000 Indians in the US. By 1980, it reached 20,000. And at present, it is said that there are more than 3 million Indians living in the States of America, which is 1% to the total population of US. The Indian diaspora has settled outside of the United States as well, which is having 1 million, Canada 1 million, South Africa 2 million, the Middle East 6 million. So like it is estimated that the total assets of Indian diaspora around the world is close to 1 trillion, half of which are financial assets. This implies that if the Indian government can make the Indian diaspora shift their focus towards their ancestral places, it would be a great change to build India. And according to the International Monetary Fund data, by 2017, Indian nominal GDP, gross domestic product, was US 2.46 trillion, while the annual income of the Indian diaspora is estimated to be US 400 billion, which is around 20% of Indian GDPs. India is the largest recipient of migrant remittances in the world, receiving over 50 billion in 2010. Furthermore, it is said that an estimated 50% of these inflows are US 8 billion is generated by European Union countries, which is a figure of around 0.6% of India's gross domestic product. This figure suggests that Indian government should mobilize and make them participate in the Indian government development strategy. So diaspora and developments, perhaps one of the greatest benefits of engaging with the 30 million strong Indian diaspora has been in terms of remittances. India was the world's largest recipient of remittances in 2016, receiving US 62.7 billion. Remittances aid in socio-economic development as it is used for the recipient family's personal use, in temple building, and for donations to schools, hospitals, and health sector, agriculture, and various other sectors. These remittances have played a role in poverty reduction while changing consumption behavior in rural areas. In an Indian Economic Review survey using National Sample Survey organization data, the researchers pointed to the fact that remittances receiving households were not only better off than non-remittances receiving household, but also that the remittances was mostly used to purchase food items, other consumer goods, and healthcare. Spending on healthcare as an important labor market in the implication as it increases labor productivity. Interestingly, the same survey reported that least money was spent on education, which also has implication on the labor market. It can so Indian diaspora can, if we can mobilize Indian diaspora, that diaspora can invest in rural employment project. It can invest in health sector, agricultural sector, small scale industries, because largest employment generation is generated by the small scale industries. The long term advantage in nurturing its ties with active diaspora is in accelerated technological sector and increased socio-economic development. So prospect last. So to who the diaspora, the government should meet, organize, and promote about its policies in international fora rather than involving in frequent political affairs. India has more than 25 million diaspora scattered around the world, which is a boon for Indian economy. It is the largest diaspora in the world, which we know that after China. It has many potential to change India's societal and economic structure. They have occupied a significant position in the countries wherever they are living. The diaspora has become a very influential and active in the politics and economy of the country. In other words, the Indian diaspora has a lot of economic and political resources. However, the resources have not been that much prioritized in Indian development strategies. Therefore, the time has come for India to tap the hitherto ignored Indian diaspora help to be part of Indian development path. Particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic, the entire global economy got shuttered and more Indians. Yes, the government should frequently conduct seminar, workshop, and brainstorming sessions with the diaspora to woo the interest of a diaspora to further open the economy for Indian diaspora by minimalizing restrictions and red taping. Because if you establish in India, it takes minimum 30 days. Why can't we reduce it to 15 days, 10 days? So if the government continues to focus on the aspect of the diaspora homeland relationship, they are bound to benefit from its synergetic advantages. They act as important intermediate linking traditional development actors and local communities. Diaspora's motives to invest in India are in contract to non-diaspora FDI. Their investment decisions are not entirely profit driven, as many of them wish to establish a long-term base in India. They are also better informed of market conditions, the domestic labor and economic policies, and consequently have more realistic expectation of time frame for project completions and investment returns. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleague, for this very interesting presentation. This has surely set the background that will be much valuable for other colleagues talking about India, and it also invites colleagues talking about other countries to maybe present insights on how they see the countries they analyze compared to the case you've brought in regards to India. Moving now to the next presenters, I would like to welcome the audience to submit questions via our chat box you can find on the lower part of your screen. I would also like to kindly request all the presenters to really adhere to the 12 minutes we have. This is in order to allow us to have at least 15 minutes for questions and answers, which will naturally be an opportunity for the presenters to come back again and present additional ideas. So without further delay, I would like to invite now Mohammad Omar Faroque. He's the research coordination of the Youth Platform for Sustainable Development in Bangladesh, and he will present on challenges for low-skilled migrants. Welcome, Mohammad.
Yes,
Are you with?
thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. So if you don't mind, I will just jump in when you reach 10 minutes to ask you to head towards concluding. But over to you.
First of all, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, whatever you are, wherever you are. Thank you, nice team, for arranging such insightful and illuminating conference on international migration. And thank you to all participants. So may I share my PPT?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. So my topic is challenges for low-skill migrant perspective for Bangladesh. You know, Bangladesh, the total overview, the total outline of my presentation is first of all understanding low-skill migrants, the Bangladesh perspective, and then challenges for the low-skill migrants in two phases, in two levels. First of all pre-departure challenges and post-departure challenges. So you know that Bangladesh is one of the most overpopulated countries, which is now developing countries. So the low-skilled migrants in Bangladesh is the uh, most talked and most burning issue in today's Bangladesh, and also for host countries who are hosting the all migrants from Bangladesh. So around 700,000 Bangladeshi citizens and are migrating in every year for work. So the most of them are low skill migrants. The topic is low skill migrant in migration discourse is now is going to most more burning and most talked day by day, because they're challenging the they are facing the many challenges in the globalized and technologically developed world, but equally they are not developing, they are not being skilled with changing uh, the environment in workstation, in workplaces. For that, the challenges for low skill migrants is going to be difficult for them. So, who are the low skill migrant? Low skill migrant can refer to people with formal qualification, few formal qualification, people working jobs that do not require such qualification. So, we know that we understand that they're working in construction sector, cleaning sector, and housing service. Basically, those migrants, they don't have enough educational qualification, enough information, enough. They don't have qualification to communicate, to understand the situation, to understand the develop technology in workplace. That's the main challenges. So their job basically is it's a dangerous and dirty and demeaning jobs. You know that that's called 3D jobs. So this sector like construction, cleaning, and household service, this sector totally depends on the our low-skilled migrants. And these low-skilled migrants are they are going to basically into Middle East and also in Southeast Asian countries, Malaysia. Uh, so now what they do basically they are doing the construction. It's risky and dangerous and demeaning job for them. How their life is going on, they uh, the problem is their lifestyle and where they are living in one room they are living 10 or 15 people. This is their lifestyle. So see what they are doing. And sometimes their migration system is totally uh, because of lacking information and knowledge. They are going to be victim of trafficking. This low skill migrant, they are going to be victim of trafficking sometimes. So major challenges for low skill migrants in P debates are challenges. First of all, P debates are before uh, their starting journey for their destination, they have been facing some challenges. First of all, as they are not educated or not aware, they have lack of information and awareness. They don't have any information where they will go, what is the condition of workplace, what is the situation here. So they don't have enough information, but they have fascination. They will go to Middle East because they are PDGs or their father or grandfather they are in Middle East or somewhere else. So they have fascination for being immigrant, but they don't have information and awareness. For this, what is happening? They are going to be victim of trafficking. They have the financial, personal, and social risk. They don't have the risk of being migrant. They don't have they don't know what is the condition of them in migrate in their workplace. So there is some risk, but they are not aware. Secondly, they have proper knowledge, lack of proper knowledge regarding safe migration. But they have fascination, they are willing to go, they have money even, but they don't know what is the process of migration, what they have to face in the airport, in their journey, and after reaching in their workplace, they don't know. So this is the uh, second challenges. So these challenges brings them under the exploitation by middlemen and agencies. So because of for being lack of proper knowledge regarding safe migration, they are going to be victim of exploitation by middlemen agencies. There are something happening brokery. So this is the second challenge. Third challenge is lack of adequate educational qualification. They don't have minimum educational qualification to communicate in foreign language, to communicate in English. They don't have knowledge. They don't have even sometimes they don't have primary education. So also the scenario is changing right now gradually. So that's why uh, for lack of educational qualification, they are facing the challenges problem in their whole journey from home to abroad. Now challenges for low skill migrants in post departure. Anyway, they can go abroad for economic for their to get to escape poverty and to provide economic support to their family. But after reaching their workplace, they're facing many challenges, and it's severe more than the pre departure challenges. First of all, they are getting low wages and they are doing unpaid jobs because they don't have communication knowledge. They don't have how to negotiate for their better salaries. They don't have how to survive in foreign. They don't have knowledge how to survive in foreign countries. So that's going on. So secondly, after reaching their these countries, they're facing dire situation. They don't have good sanitary, good health, nutrition, and system. They're living 10 or 15 people in one room. So this is the dire situation. Second, thirdly, the women who are trafficking, who are being migrated from developing countries to developed world, or they are facing sexual and gender-based violence, and they are facing torture, and they are returning home. fourthly, remittance measurement. Oh, anyway, they are enjoying, they are earning money. They are anyway, they are facing many challenges. Despite of facing many challenges, they are earning. So they are sending back those remittance to whom. So what is happening after sending those remittance? They don't have enough knowledge how to manage their remittance. They don't have financial literacy. So that's why they're misusing those remittance. So and sometimes happening there sometimes conflict over using remittance. Their family level, when they have the huge amount of remittance, so sometimes conflicts happening regarding using of remittance. So then what is happening after passing 20 years, 30 years of 30 years from their life in foreign countries, uh, at the end of the day, they have to come back to their home. So what is happening after coming back? They're facing unemployment. They have to come back anyway because of sometimes happening many accident and many they don't have job. They have to come back. So after coming back, they're facing unemployment challenge. They don't have capacity now to start working in our home country. So recently, what is happening is the COVID-19 induced challenge. It's more severe after outbreak, after spreading of COVID-19. The most vulnerable community of the world was the low skill migrant. They don't have security. They don't have protection in abroad where they are working, and they can't come back to their home. When they are coming back to home, the people suspecting him for spreading the coronavirus, spreading the COVID-19. So this is the demeaning one kind of when they're passing whole life in another country, in foreign country for their country, for their people, for their family. But these people are not expecting them. This country are not accepting them because of their fear. They are afraid of foreigners or returning migrants. They are spreading COVID-19. So thank you everyone. It was my presentation. Thank you once again for to all participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Faroque, for a very insightful and timely presentation. Thank you very much. Very interesting how you look at two moments where vulnerabilities regarding to migration reveal themselves before migrating and after one actually migrates. I'd like now to move to the third presenter, who is Mr. Benjamin Mwadi Makengo. He's a doctoral fellow at the School of Politics and International Studies at Normal University in China. His presentation will be on competitive globalization and high-skilled global migration. Africa, the big loser, interrogation mark. So, Benjamin, do you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks so much for the speech. And also, thanks so much for the kind introduction. And I would like also, first of all, to thank the organizer of this great event. And for me, this is like an interesting topic and exciting one. Though it's very interesting for Africa now to discuss, the migration issue, as just And just like you say, the topic I'm gonna discuss with you is competitive globalization and high seek global migration, Africa, the big loser. Just that before the COVID-19, we were like in the acceleration of globalization, in increasing globalized world. It was like that, the increasing of mobility and interdependence, and also the inclusion of the world. And in that dynamic of before globalization, just now we are expecting that that the globalization is a little bit like affected with the COVID-19, and we have like now like less mobility, particularly for the people. You know, because of the COVID-19, we don't have like more migration actually. But I think like after the COVID-19, you know, the world it will come again with the idea of the increasing globalization, interdependency, mobility, and inclusion. But in this globalizing world, you know, the most of the global actors, some they want to become very powerful than others. They want to increase power to be great than others. But in the world that we are living today, power, power is shifting. Power is really shifting. Power is not meant just to have more armies, to have more material capability, but power now is defined by knowledge. And we are living now in the knowledge age. And if we are living in the knowledge age, you want to be more powerful than others. Yeah, of course, you should have more people with more knowledge, with IC, really knowledge that they can compete or dominate others in the global level. And that's why the competition is increasing in the global level for the IC people. But look, just why is what a worrying now? Is a worrying because if we look at Africa, I think maybe most of you, maybe also the participant of this event, maybe if you study abroad, maybe already you found also one African guy who were like who was like smart, but you just thought that he will go back again to Africa to work in Africa. But maybe next time when you will call him, where are you? You tell you, I'm now in the United States, I'm in UK, I'm not in Africa. And you can imagine like, the problem now. And you will see the unserved people of Africa, and they are moving, they are going where, you know, the in the global act or in the country where it's more attractive, where they can find more opportunity. And most of the ISIC people of Africa, they are going to other regions, other continents. And in Africa, we don't have no more like ISIC people, but we are living now in the knowledge age. And that's a big problem for Africa. And that it means that in this area, in this knowledge age, Africa is risking again to be the big loser. Yeah, of course, we are in the competition. It's quite a competition. We will have the winner and we will have also the loser. Yeah, maybe Africa, it will not be like the only one to lose, but Africa is going to be really the big loser. But the question is why Africa is risking to be the big loser? If you look at the graph, the figures, you will see that most of the IC people, they are of Africa, of course, they are going to United States. They are going to Canada, they are going to Europe, in UK, and also in Australia. Is those countries attracting more the IC people? And if we just want to understand the idea of those countries, you will see in those countries is like you can find more opportunity. They are attracting more African people. I think, of course, people. And if the African, they are going to start in United States or in Australia, if is like a mock smart, is more likely that that student will stay again in United States to not come back in Africa. That is a very big loss for Africa. And the, the point, just like I say, the question is why you can see in the North America, we have United States with attracting more ISIL people. And in Oceania, of course, we have Australia with attracting more ISIL people. And in Europe, you can see UK or France or Germany, they are attracting more IC people. And in Asia, here, of course, we can see also China actually is driving also force for attract more IC people. Yeah, even if India, of course. But in Africa, you will see that we don't have a country who can attract also some IC people to come in Africa or to be very competitive like in a global level, to compete with others. We don't have a driving country. A country can drive to attract some active people to come also in Africa. But of course, we have also the problem of lack of police, a lack of police, of migration police. And the problem is about leadership. Of course, we have a problem of vision, leadership, vision. And this lack of leadership, vision of police, and that makes so risky for the future. And it means that in this knowledge area, if Africa is not making like the good policy for the migration to think mad how to survive better in this knowledge area, we are going to be a big loser again. Just like what is said, you know, in the industrial age, of course, Africa was the big loser, of course, the very big loser. You can just see the level of industrialization in Africa. But we are moving again in a very knowledge area. And in this knowledge area again, Africa is going to be also a big loser. And that's why it's time now for African leaders and African countries to be aware about this situation and to think too much how they can survive very well in this knowledge area. Otherwise, they are going to be the big loser. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you very much. Very interesting view, a bigger view of things, and how you see Africa on this very peculiar moment where you characterize you're shifting from industrial society to some sort of post-industrial society, which you call knowledge society. Very interesting thoughts. I'm very curious actually to see how our audience reacts, and I would imagine there would be many questions to the three presenters we heard thus far. On that note, let me again invite the audience to convey their questions through the chat box. Please don't be shy, and you do not need to wait till everybody finish their presentations to place your questions. You can type it there anytime, and at the end we will compile everything else. Now, going back with the flow of presentations, we have Neha Choudhary from the International Labour Organization Country Office for Nepal, and she will deliver a presentation titled Towards a Rights-Based Approach to Labour Migration, International Labour Standards Relating to Migrant Workers. So Neha, do you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you very much. And please, the floor is yours. Over.
All right, thank you so much, Pedro, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'm trying to share my screen. I just need a confirmation that it's showing. Is it
Yeah, you could go ahead.
visible? Okay. So thank you so much to the organizers for inviting me to be part of this panel. It's been quite a privilege to hear my co-panelists, and my presentation today would be more in terms of trying to understand the international labor standards that exist for migrant workers and for the protection of their rights, because the basis of my argument in the presentation is how we need to take a rights-based approach to actually maximize the development outcomes of migration for migrant workers, their families, as well as the countries of origin and countries of destination. So the structure of my presentation is this. In order to save time, I'm not going to go into all the details, but then I'll start with like how development migration linkages have been made in theory, and why migrant workers need very specific kinds of protection mechanism, and what are the international labor standards that exist for the protection of migrant workers. So when we look at theories on migration and development, what we see is that, you know, there have been various approaches to how the migration development linkages have been made in the sense, like if you look at the linkage between migration with the modernization theory, we see how it conceptualizes, it says like how more development leads to less migration. Then when we look at how migration interacts with dependency theory, we see how more migration then leads to less development. Or there's also another approach where it's seen how well-managed migration leads to less development. Or more development, sorry, I think there's an error in my, on my slide. But then off late, we are also seeing a new approach where we are talking about how migration needs to be mainstreamed into sectoral policies relevant to education, to employment, so on and so forth, to ensure maximum benefits of migration to everyone. However, without a framework for the protection of rights of migrant workers, the development outputs for everyone cannot be maximized. So why do migrant workers need specific protections? First of all, non-citizens rarely benefit from full or equal treatment, as we've seen in various countries, and especially for migration from higher development. We are also seeing that migrant workers are often overrepresented in low-skilled precarious employment and largely in temporary migration program. We've seen that largely from like Asia to the Gulf, or Asia, South Asia to East Asia, even in case of, for instance, Africa to Gulf or other regions as well. Migrant workers are by and large like overrepresented in so-called low-skilled jobs such as agriculture, construction, so on and so forth. And like Mr. Faroque in his presentation has already said, like low-skilled migrant workers are at a greater risk of going through abusive recruitment practices. And there are also a large number of intersectional or multiple levels of discrimination that migrant workers have had to face, especially in the context of South Asia. We've seen how women migrant workers have been discriminated against, even in the policy frameworks. and which then compels them to then take irregular or routes to migrate, and which further adds to their vulnerability. So a rights-based approach to labor migration is necessary because human beings as workers and their family members are at the heart of international labor migration. International labor migration should not be immune to the application of the rule of law. And internationally accepted minimum standards ground and guide formulation of labor migration policies at both national and international level, as well as the regional level. There needs to be independent and transparent monitoring to ensure compliance and to foster an environment of improvement and constant review of national laws and policies. And in the context of ILO, what we've seen is like international labor standards are agreed by governments, workers, and employers. So it's very unique of ILO as we are a tripartite structure and who come together to actually then formulate international labor standards. So the ILO mandate in all of it is, for instance, like our constitution, enforces or promotes the principles of social justice to ensure protection of all, including workers who are employed in countries other than their own. And it also re-emphasizes the commitment to not treat labor as commodity. We also have international labor standards, which I'll go into further detail in the next slides. And we also have several declarations to ensure that rights of migrant workers are preserved. So these are the list of ILO's fundamental conventions. And amongst these, even though everything would be applicable to migrant workers, and international labor standards by principle is applicable to all categories of workers other than otherwise stated. So all of these are relevant to migrant workers and other workers alike. But then I would like to draw your attention to the Forced Labor Convention, which is what we are seeing by and large, which would be relevant to migrant workers in particular, because we often see migrant workers being held in forced labor working conditions at countries of destination. So this is something that would be of relevance. We also have other general instruments of general application, and as well as instruments that have express provisions on migrant workers. I'm not going to go into details of all of this. So the international labor standards that are directly related to protection of rights of migrant workers in the ILO are those that I've listed in the slides. In particular, the most relevant one is the Migration for Employment Convention, which is Convention 97, and its recommendation 86, as well as the Migrant Workers Convention 1975, which is our Convention 143 and its supplementary recommendation. We also have Domestic Workers Convention, which has a specific provision on the protection of domestic workers, including migrant workers. We have Private Employment Agencies Convention, which is, again, trying to promote accountable recruitment practices to address the issues that we've encountered in the course of recruitment of migrant workers. We have our larger framework of fundamental principles and rights at work, which aims to enforce the fundamental labor standards that we have, which includes the elimination of forced labor, ensuring the right to organize and freedom of association, elimination of child labor, and also elimination of any form of discrimination, which are seen as the key foundation for ensuring decent work for any category of workers. We also have the ILO Multilateral Framework on Labor Migration, which I'll go into more detail in like my later slides. And we have recently we have the ILO has developed a normative framework by the name of the General Principles and Operational Guideline on Fair Recruitment, and the subsequent definition of recruitment fees and related costs to ensure fair, ethical, and responsible recruitment of migrant workers in which their rights are protected in the entire migration circle. So just I don't want to go into too much of detail of all these conventions because it can seem very dry, but then just to sort of highlight the key features of Convention 97 and 143, which are directly related to migrant workers, is that it taken together, they recognize that all migrant workers, regardless of status that is, should enjoy basic human rights and labor rights that are agreed upon in the international human rights instruments and the fundamental principles and rights at work. It also calls for equal treatment of migrant workers at par with national workers. It also includes provision for inclusion of okay, thank you, Pedro. I'll just like so you can see that it ensures like these instruments ensure migrant workers access to access to justice, access to much more decent work conditions. Given that I just have 1 minute to conclude, I'll just like browse through my slides, and then maybe you can, if anyone has any questions that they can ask. Like, the ILO multilateral framework on labor migration came in more in terms of to develop some practical guidance on how to then formulate policies that better govern labor migration. We also have currently the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, in particular SDG 8 and SDG 10 are targeted more towards creating accountability and ensuring safe, orderly and regular migration. As all migration scholars might be aware of, we also have the newly endorsed Global Compact on Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration, which, although not legally binding, is a cooperative framework, and it's a huge feat in terms of really enforcing coordination, a global level coordination to then promote safe migration. And in conclusion, we do have these multiple international normative instruments that protect migrant workers against all their risks. However, that being said, the caveat is that these cannot be translated into action unless both countries of origin and countries of destination really formulate policies and legislative framework with appropriate procedures and mechanism to ensure application. Without that, we cannot ensure the protection of migrant workers. Thank you so much, and I'm sorry if I've ran over the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neha. That was a very interesting presentation, and it cherished us with a bit of hope after having the first presentations pointing some of the risks and some of the challenges in the way of converting migration into a development boost, and seeing that, despite these challenges, there is an international framework. There has been a lot of legal measures that exist at the global level, and that might help us taking best profit and, doing a better utilization of the phenomenon of migration. And interestingly, and related to what Neha just brought, we will have now a presentation by Shreelaxmi Mohanty, who is a research scholar at the Central University of Gujarat, India. And she will be talking about governance of migrant workers and international law perspective. Shreelaxmi, do you hear us?
Yes, sir. I'm audible?
Okay, so thank you very much. Please take the floor, and you have 12 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen.
Yes. Also, colleagues, I would like to ask us all to close our mics, leaving just Shreelaxmi, if you may. And yes, please go for it.
I think I'm audible and my screen is visible.
Yes, you're visible and audible. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And my presentation is on governance of migrant workers and international law perspective. I think most of my work has already been done by Ms. Neha Choudhary, because she had actually given a very broader picture on the migration laws and international labor organization standards. So I'm giving an international law perspective to it. I think my screen is visible. The globalization process has actually encouraged a large flow of human movement across the world. Mostly the demand for labor and skill created opportunities for the workers to migrate to different countries. The migrant workers count as the largest group among the total international migration population according to the World Migration Report 2020. To protect these migrant workers' rights and to help the state to govern these migrants, several laws have been codified by the international organization. These international laws contains both hard law and soft law. Hard laws means which are legally binding, and soft laws are those which are actually the principle of guiding, but they are not legally binding for the country. So my paper, I'm talking to mainly of two things: as the international laws and migration governance framework, and second is the international legal provisions on migrant worker governance. So first, let's see about what is the international law. The Vincent Chettle, in his book International Migration Laws, defined international law can be understood as rules and principles of general application dealing with the conduct of state and international organization, and with the relation interstate as well as the relation with the person, whether natural and judicial. This sentence, whether natural and judicial, defines that the laws are applicable for the citizens and also non-citizens. The United Nations define international laws as a legal responsibility of the state in their conduct with each other and the treatment of individuals within the state boundaries. The Global Migration Policy Association defines the interdependent set of legal norms, policies, institution, and practice to administer, regulate, and mediate activities and relations within the defined political social entities, whether state, administrative regions, cities, or cooperative bodies. So this is the migration governance. So what is the migration governance? The migration governance is a multi-layered process which involves the international organization, migrants, countries of origin, destination, and the intervening countries, and in some cases the civil society. It aims at reducing migrant vulnerabilities by ensuring their safety in the migration process, integration, assimilation, social and cultural well-being at the host society. It is the framework that reflects the rules and regulations that should be part of the state immigration policy. And if you see the Global Commission of International Migration, in the domain of international migration, governance assumes a variety of forms, includes the migration policies and programs of individual countries, interstate discussion and agreements, multilateral and consultative processes, the activities of international organization, as well as the relevant laws and norms. So, what could be a migration governance process? Normally, the migration governance includes that the state will take up the policies or improve the standards of international organization while they are formulating their migration policies, or when they are dealing with workers who are not citizen of their country or the international workers. I know in that case, the International Organization of Migration has actually said what could be a good migration governance. Through them, I quote, adheres to international standards and fulfills migrant rights, formulate policy using evidence and a whole of government approach, engages with the partners to address migration and related issues. So this could be a good governance, good policy for the state, which actually adheres to the international standards while they are dealing with the migrants with a whole of government approach. The whole of government approach is include like their health, their education, their wage, and everything. Then you can see the major development of on migration governance. The first, I think, the major one is the UN Carrier Conference on Population and Development, which took place in September 1994. In which the international migration was the agenda and mostly discussed. And the second, followed by the Barron's publication on migration and international legal norms in 2004. International Labour Organization Multilateral Framework on Labour Migration, non-binding principles guidelines for right-based approach to labour migration in 2006. Then the Global Commission on International Migration, or GCIM, which ran about from December 2003 to December 2004. It held a series of regional consultation and submitted the report on migration in the intercultural world. And this actually booklet has very important for all the international migration scholar and practitioners, because this actually gives a broader picture of how this migration policy should be and the governance of the international migration. Then the second, then there is also a first high-level dialogue on international migration. Then second, in high-level international migration, they actually discussed about making the migration work, or how could we can make migration a more right-based or more legal. And in which they have discussed the eight-point agenda for making migration work, in which the very first two agenda point are for migrant workers. The first is the protecting the human right of all migrants and reducing the cost of labor migration. This is very important at that time. And further the new declaration in 2016, which is very fundamental, in which we have had discussed the European migration crisis, and that time there was a common consensus for having two major international conventions to pass on 2018, that is the Global Compact for Migration and another is the Global Compact for Refugees. So there is an the international framework on global migration governance. It is general migration governance formed by International Organization of Migration in 2014 to actually develop a framework to understand how a good migration governance policy should be developed by the nation. This framework is also known as the Migration Governance Framework, or MIGA. According to International Organization of Migration, the MIGA will help define the well-managed migration policy may look like at the national level. The document actually themed as the essential element for facilitating orderly, safe, and regular and responsible migration and mobility of people through planned and well-managed migration policy. The objective of the sound migration governance should be 6.2, adheres to the objective of adheres to socio-economic well-being of migrant and society, and to provide an effective response to the mobility dimension of crisis, and to ensure that the migration take place in a safe, orderly, and dignified manner. I think this migration governance actually gives international society a protocol or the set of principles that how migration could be more safe and well managed. And to evaluate this migration governance, they have also developed a migration governance indicator in which they have indication of right, their well-being and the policy. And there are some legal provisions on migrant worker governance, as Ms. Neha Choudhary already give light on this and this protocol. So I don't think I will go further into it. But I will definitely go into the convention part, which actually deals with the governance. So who are the migrant workers? The International Convention on Protection of Rights of Migrant Workers and Members of the Families define migrant workers under the Article 1 as a person who is engaged, is to be engaged or has been engaged in a remunerative activities in a state of which he or she is not a national. So it is very important to understand that it is not the migrant worker is not just one who is working. They also one who is supposed to go for another country to work, or is a future migrant, or who is planning to. So this migration convention is actually goes for the help the migrant workers from the time they plan to migrate. They start migrating from their country of origin, their legal documentation, then the intervening country or the buffer state which they pass to reach the destination country, and in destination countries, documentation of their reach, of their their documentation of they are engaged in specific work, and the protection of their families also. All this convention actually is a comprehensive legal framework for the governance of migrants, in a necessarily important prerequisite for the governance, global migration governance. The international organization thinks that migrants workers are the integral part because they count the highest number of migration, so that their governance is actually a part of the higher global governance. So according to the International Labour Organization legal framework, they have actually 4 migrant workers international labour standard that I also already discussed by Ms. Neha, and the 6 international labour standard containing specific provision of migrant workers, the 8 fundamental conventions that apply to all workers of migrant status, and the 4 governance convention underlined by the International Labour Organization Declaration on Justice for a fair and globalization, and its follow-up. I think of what Ms. Neha actually left for me to actually discuss, I think, is the Global Compact for Safe and Orderly and Regular Migration, or the DCM. The DCM, which is come to force in it actually came in 2018 December. It actually has 23 objectives, and these objectives are not only confined to the migrant workers or the refugees, as though the refugees are there are other convention, but actually this migration, the DCM actually is a very broader picture, though it's non-binding, but actually the civil societies and has actually taking it more seriously to make it more binding. It is because this compact for safe and orderly regular migration talks about how these migrants are the demand for skills, where they get the skills, the documentation of them and their families, the children involved in this migration process, and the cost of labor production, the cost of their travel, the visa documentation. I think the DCM is the first intergovernmentally negotiated agreement and prepared under the United Nations, which cover the all dimension of international migration historically and comprehensively. It is non-binding, whose enters and binding document that respects states' sovereign right to determine who enters and stays in their territory, and demonstrate a commitment to international cooperation on migration. It presents a significant opportunity to improve the governance of migration, to address the challenges associated with today's migration, and to strengthen the contribution of migrants and migration to sustainable development goals. So let's talk about what the effect of this international laws. You know, if you can see the international law, this covers a wide area. Yes, sir. This is my conclusion part.
Okay.
Actually, this covers the areas of social security, maternity protection, employment policy, regulations of private and public employment agencies, occupational safety, health, or to wage equality, to reduce the cost of migration or the hassles of migration. But what lacks this international law? It lacks the state ratification. Even the state ratifies these laws, they never put this convention in their migration policies. Even though some countries namely put some of these standards in their migration policies, but they never applied in the ground. So migration governance or the specialized migrant worker governance in this field has become more difficult and more legally difficult because we know that these laws, even if they're legally binding, if the state don't accept this, so there is no centrally authorized organization who actually takes up the thing. And I think there is a huge demand for the integrated and a world level organization who will solely work upon to see how these countries who ratify the international laws are reflecting these in their policy. So there should be a world organization of migrants who actually could see that these international laws are applicable on the ground level. So thank you. I will open to all the questions. So I think, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shreelaxmi. Very interesting. Interesting how you built from the previous presentation, but you also showed that beyond the ILO, that there are more organizations, there are more global efforts to promote decent migration, or to regulate forms of migration and to provide for sustainable governance mechanisms to discipline such an important phenomenon like migration. With that, we move to our last presentation. His name is Shohit Nayam. She's a joint research consultant at the National Human Rights Commission of India. So it will be very interesting after seeing two presentations talking about the global legal framework for protecting migrants. We're going to now hear from someone that works at an institution that is there to oversee that this legislation is observed and it is carried on. So his presentation is titled Scanning Migrants Across SAARC, Advocating Towards Common Data and Policy Sharing Portal. So Shonit, if you're here as well, please accept my warm welcome.
Thank you so much, sir. Am I audible to all of you, sir?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Thank you so much, sir, for inviting. Am I audible? Like my voice is clear or not? Like I just want to confirm, sir.
Yes, there is some noise, some background noise. Yes, now you have lowered the background noise. Can you?
Is it okay now?
I mean, we can understand what you say, but there is this kind of interference. I have no idea where it comes from.
Is it okay? Am I audible properly now?
I don't know if other colleagues from the organization want to have a suggestion here.
We can hear. Please go ahead.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much to chair And thank you to the NICE platform for organizing this important conference, because the COVID-19 has exposed this particular problem of international migration. And again, the chair is right that I am working in a human rights organization, and which is quite important. So again, all of co-panelists have shared well about the migration scenario in world labor or a particular countries like Bangladesh. So my topic will be like scanning migration across SARC, and on the perspective of that, we need to a common data portal or a policy sharing portal so that we can deal with this strategy. So may I allow to share my screen?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. You can share it.
So is the screen is visible?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Going ahead. First of all, the people who are not familiar with what is the SARC, so it is a regional organization of 8 countries, and the countries which are members of it like Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, the Maldives, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. So these are the South Asian countries. So as per if we concern on a static, so 21% of global population reside in all these 8 countries. And again, 3% of world area are covered by these 8 countries. And as far as this presentation or theme is on economic term, so 3.8% of global economy is revolved around these 8 countries. So this reason is quite important. And the basic establishment or basic principle which upon this SARC is constituted, those are 5. That is development of human resources, then transport, then meteorological sciences and technology sharing platform, then rural development and population. So these are the 5 fundamental principles which upon SARC has been constituted. So now coming direct to the topic, this is international migration. So first of the question arises that how can one define the international migration? So as such, there is no legal definition of international migration. We have bodies like ILO, we have bodies on some of presenters here that UN Global Compact and Migration. So they don't have a proper definition for international migration. But in simple terms, crossing of nation or state boundaries by people or population for purpose of settlement. Reason may be anyone, economic reason or safety reason or anything, and staying in a host state for some minimum time length is defined as an international migration, or those persons are defined as international migrants. So why is international migration important? Because it emerged as a global agenda, and particularly this COVID-19 pandemic has exposed this crisis of international migration. And if you have something as a global issues, for that purpose, you need a global solution or a multinational solution or a regional solution. So we have to think multilaterally, collaterally for this international migration. So now coming straight back to South Asia region. So in South Asia region, as one of my presenters highlighted, that there are large number of remittances or large amount of remittances which are parts of South Asia which are coming from migrant. So migrant workers are nothing but like socio-economic growth engine in South Asian countries or all these 8 countries. And again, this so-called third world countries are one of the fastest growing region in the world. So migrant crisis is quite important. And again, there is need of consensus and cooperation mapping between origin and destination nation. So that rights of, again, I am working as a human rights commission, so realization of rights of migrants were quite important, and this is not possible without a consensus or cooperation based matrix. And again, a recent report highlighted by a Nepal institution highlighted that migration is a socially painful process, and migrant workers have to face hostile legal system and asymmetry of power. As my previous speaker has highlighted about all the legal laws and legal repercussions which are available at international level. Moving ahead, there are some common patterns or common similarities in SARC if we trace the migration profile. So migration or labor migration is a central phenomenon in SARC region. So within the state means like within the countries and across borders. So as far as internal migration concerned across these 8 countries are, so the trend of migration is from rural to urban area. So that is a common feature across all this SARC region. So again, what are the major factors which force people to migrate from their origin country to a destination country. So some of the factors which can be highlighted is first of all intensified poverty. Then there are deepening in employment rate, particularly from rural area to urban area. Again, there is increasing inequality, and again, this COVID-19 pandemic has further increased this inequity gap. And again, there are socio-political tensions. So we can highlight this issue as Rohingya crisis. So this is like a political repercussion. So that kind of this refugee crisis has happened. And again, there are some climate changes or climate phenomenon which leads to migration crisis. And there are shortage of resources. So these are the major factors which lead to migration crisis, and the same are also true for SAARC region. So if you trace the migration profile across SAARC nation, that is quite diverse. We have in SAARC nation, we have like geographical diversity, we have cultural diversity, we have population diversity. Like countries like Bhutan or Maldives have like less than 1.5 million population, but countries like India have like more than 1.3 billion population. So these kind of population variety is also there. So there is a unique trend that India is a uniquely positioned country, which is like origin country as well as destination country and a transit point country in migration profile. Because people from India go to Nepal, go to Bangladesh for work. And again, people from Bangladesh, Nepal, these countries come to India for jobs or like that's kind of migrant issue. And again, India acts as a transit country, particularly from Nepal. So people from Nepal or like particularly women migrants use India as a transit point to go to the Gulf Cooperation Council countries or GCC countries. So if you divide the migration, so there are kind of internal migration that is happened within a state or within a nation. Then there is intra-regional. Suppose a person go from India to Nepal, or a person go from Afghanistan to Pakistan. So this is kind of intra-regional migration. And then international migration means like country from crosses international boundary. So these three kinds of classification can be done. So again, another feature is that there is a larger chunk of regular labor migrants, and there is irregular migrants and refugee population. Irregular is like something that is undocumented, or they are not put into a legal document kind of thing. Moving ahead, again, there is a common feature that gender notion of migration, as some of my previous presenters are talking about the gender migration, or particularly the women migration. So women migrant workers have to face several issues in comparison to their male counterpart. So if we track that patterns and trajectory, so first of all, that is like shaped by the societal value or so-called the patriarchal society. So they have to suffer that issue of particularly the women migration. And for example, if you go to Sri Lanka, or you can trace the like migrant history of Sri Lanka, so their women migrants outnumbered male migrants in international migration stream. But in spite of situation, they have to like a strict documentation process. They have to take documentation from local authorities. So like getting document is quite tough for if you are a woman migrant. So these need to be also highlighted while tracing the migration profile. Again, if you talk about Pakistan, Afghanistan, so because of that societal mindset, they have like low women international migration. And again, coming back to particularly three countries, Nepal, India, and Bangladesh. So in that cases, they have to go for illegal routes, because if you are not getting official document, also you have to go through illegal channels. And in way to go to that illegal channel, they have to like face the illegal recruiters. This leading to various kind of violation or various kind of exploitation, maybe women trafficking, sexual exploitation. So this is also an issue that can be highlighted in migration profile. And again, women have to like work in a less regulated environments, because they are quite prone to exploitation. They are getting very much less pay in comparison to their male counterparts. This kind of gender notion migration profile can be also highlighted. Moving ahead, so again, like what are the major destination countries for SAARC member nation? Which so first is like members or like people from SAARC prefer to go to GCC. So GCC is an organization which comprises of 6 countries. There are Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman. So people from this SAARC member nations, they prefer these destinations except Maldives and Bhutan. So again, they have to like face intensive job competition at those places. And again, they have to live in like pathetic living condition, pathetic working condition, because as someone is from ILO in our panel, so there are three kind of wages: living wages, fair wages, minimum wages. So this kind of insurance is not provided to our migrant workers. So this is also an issue. Again, there is like inadequate backup from the home state. The most important thing is the migration crisis, which like forced me to choose these topics, because there is a lack of informed and right-based migration, or we have like lack of a portal where like information or data is not available, from where like government or non-state actors can trace the data or like records regarding the migrants. So this is also like creating a problem. So, and again, all of us like aware with this COVID-19, and we are all like a picture of picture of migrants coming on like highways in India. They have like taken by the news in like from New York to New Delhi. So this is again like a serious issue. So what are the challenges which can be faced by migration? So there are we can, for better purpose, we can divide into two classification, that is pre-migration challenges and post-migration. As far as pre-migration challenges is concerned, so like there is growth of intermediaries or middle parties who changes extra rate for getting work permits or work licenses, and particularly giving transit. So this is an issue that is particularly happen pre-migration phase. And if we talk about post-migration phase, the challenges is like denial of wages, long working hours, sexual exploitation. Already I highlighted that. There the forced labor or bonded labor, then denied of labor rights, because if you want to, you can highlight that in GCC, migrant workers are not entitled to get the particular labor rights. So this is again a pathetic issue or need to be addressed. And again, there is another thing, that is that short distance international migration that happen between like Nepal, Bangladesh, like people from Nepal and Bangladesh prefer India as a destination for like minimum sustenance or kind of a surviving studies. So this is again a migration profile. So now coming on the why technology and data panacea or data analytics is important to this address this particular crisis. So technology has potential to address everyone, that is a state or state actors like and non-state actors, even NGO or international bodies. So that is a potential lies in technology and data analytics. Because this information and communication technology experimentation, this provide level playing field for everyone, that is workers, labor official, recruitment agency, government, policy provider, international platform, civil society. So it is like a win-win situation for everyone if you have a ICT portal. So why it is important? Because there is a called as access to information or access to remedy. So that particular robust framework can be extended if we have a common data analytics or technological protocol. And all of us are like quite familiar with blockchain word. So this blockchain can be used, or it has having latent potential to help migrants to make important choices at various, because going deep into that, blockchain is a technology in which like any process can be like put in a computer that is in chain. Suppose a workers from India go to GCC countries, so he or she has to go through several processes. So that particular can be stored in a hash table or kind of hashing techniques. So blockchain can be a win-win game in this situation. Moving ahead. If you promote the solution matrix, that what are the solution matrix which can be given? So firstly, like there should be insurance of fair conditions of work and fair living conditions for migrants going from like within South Asian countries or away from South Asian countries like GCC or even Singapore or other European nations. And in this like dimension, there is urgent need or kind of need of revival of South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation or SARC. So this can be also like cooperation between the two bilateral countries, because SARC is not so successful in the recent years, because there is personal or kind of bilateral enmity between two countries as increasing. So these need to be revived. Like we have shared a common portal in COVID-19 management, and we have shared our practices on that. So on that basis, we have to also like think towards making a common migration portal where we can share the policies regarding migration, how we are dealing with internal migration. So this can be think forward. Again, there is like restorance of dignity to intra-regional migrants, respect or dignity should be also given to this migrant workers. And then further solution can be given that there is need to go for amiable solution on long-standing disputes related to legality and citizenship, like my previous speaker has highlighted about what are the legal clauses or what are the like drawbacks regarding that GCC that is not mandatory. So these need to be also addressed. Then we can collectively negotiate with GCC countries. Those are the major international migration hub, particularly for SAARC member nations or population going to those countries. So we can initiate dialogue with them or go on MOU or kind of channel with those countries through SAARC platform. And again, there are several institutions, but the problem is that de facto mandate or de facto implementation is quite important. So we have labor convention, we have ILO convention, we have migration guideline. So that need to be not only rectified, but that also need to be regularly follow up. And that should also be put under data or portal. Again, there is coming on, we have a need of electronic portal or e-portal that have record of migrant, that have like his native state, his host state, which recruiting agency has give his license or permit, what kind of or how amount of fee he or she has to pay. So this kind of information can be put into that e-portal that is quite easy for community formulators or even NGO, non-state actors. And again, there is need to already I repeated this point that ratification and follow up for all human rights conventions, and particularly because I am from a human rights institution, so we have issued several advisories in this COVID pandemic area. So that can also be think at international level because there is need of some holistic or comprehensive document to address this issue. Then one of the speaker in the start addressed about the remittancer is a larger part of migration or migrant worker. So that need to be channelized because that comes from informal channels. So there is need of banking apps or kind of formal channel. So that can be traced or that can be put into formal channels. So channelization of remittances will be a great idea. And again, focus should be on I3, that is identity of migrant workers. There is need to a proper investment for migrant workers, and then there is need of incentive for migrant workers. And there is on the basis of we have municipal bonds and for our urban local government. So in India, so on that basis we can support remittances backed bonds. So that will economic solution of this crisis. And again, so I am ending it within 50 seconds, sir.
Sorry to interrupt, deeply sorry, but if you could really wrap up in the next 30 seconds,
sir,
I would really,
okay.
I would really appreciate.
Okay, yeah, and again, the 18th December is celebrated at the 30th anniversary of 1999 International Convention on Protection of Rights of Migrant Workers, and the second anniversary of that Global Compact, which enacted in 2018. So this year is we have opportunities to create something good for migrant, and data analytics can be a good. And particularly the year 2020, which is the year of stolen wages and lost justice. So we can have opportunity to relaunch this campaign pioneered by data analytics. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shonit. I'm really sorry I had to interrupt you there, but you've delivered a very interesting presentation, and which was crafted in a very objective way and in with the way ahead. So it's definitely food for thought. By talking about food for thought, our audience has placed some questions, which I would like to forward to some presenters here. Shonit, as audience, has asked Benjamin whether he could kindly brief us upon challenges before the political will or commitment to handle international migration crisis, specifically in the context of COVID-induced economic nationalism and shrinking of globalization. Benjamin, do you think you could give a brief, direct answer to that?
Yeah, you mean the first question is for me?
Yes, the first question is for you. Okay, the second one, it's not directed to anyone, and it's actually quite a long question. There are many questions within this one question. I will try to summarize it here, focusing on the points that are more relevant to our discussions. I think a very important point made by this colleague who is following us on YouTube is when he asks the extent to which migration can be seen as a benefit from trade. And then I would add the extent to which migration can be beneficial to trade. I'd like to see also what you think about the other way around. This colleague also questions, what would be main differences on ways forward to manage immigration in Europe as opposed to the migration to the US. And the colleague also asks why immigration have always been such hot buttons for the past 12 years. And, what exactly do you believe it's the role of bureaucratic barriers, of legal barriers to immigration? Whether do you think that really reduced the volume of immigration, or if that just channels a good part of the flow of migrants into, less secure forms of migration, which I would speculate here, informal migration or legally unprotected migration. And the final question is, what are the greatest concerns in regards to immigration policies for the upcoming half century? It's also an open question. So Benjamin, if you could start by you asking answering that question from Shonit on, issues relating to the political will or commitment to handle international migration, and how has the COVID crisis affected this political will or lack of political will to discuss this topic. Over.
Yeah. Just like I say, actually, oh, yeah, actually, the COVID-19 is impacting like the mobility in the international arena. We have mobility now like is reduced like in international arena, and yeah, of course, because of the COVID-19. But we need to take care about this situation, because before the COVID-19, of course, already the mobility was like increasing in international arena, just like one of our presenters present here how they migrate, they are going, like, of course, they are trying to go somewhere they can survive it. And actually, we don't know how they are living in this situation of the COVID-19. I'm thinking with the African people now, they are living now in Europe or even in United States now. And they are, of course, some they don't have house, they don't have like the place of living. And with the COVID-19 crisis, the condition of living is not quite really good for them. But just like I say, I want to bring that question according to the perspective about what I was saying here about Africa. Just like I say, the biggest challenge for Africa is the police, and of course the lack of vision and leadership also. Because if we want to go in the perspective of the ISIL migration, and Africa is provide more people abroad, people they are going to study abroad, United States and Europe. And those people who are going to study abroad, they are not coming back again in Africa, especially if they are very smart. They are staying again. And that situation is a very, very bad situation that it will impact really Africa in this knowledge age. And of course, Africa is going to be loser. And with the COVID-19, you can see actually we have like a kind of virtual, like I don't know if I can call it virtual, like immigration of idea or what this, and everything is like going online, everything is online, but when the COVID-19 it will finish and the mobility it will like come back again, and that mobility and the African country, Africa, need to think again about politics and try, of course, to survive better in this shifting world of this knowledge area. And it's quite also quite the same with Asia also. But I have also a question for the Indian scholar here.
Okay, thank you, Benjamin. Thank you very much. Now, I think a nice way to go with this question and answer session would be to maybe offer each presenter 1 minute to either complement Benjamin's answer to the questions that have been placed to us, or to just convey a final message related to the presentation each of you has delivered. So if there are no oppositions to that idea, I would like to invite Dr. Junuguru. Do you hear me, Junuguru? Hello?
Yeah, tell me, sir.
Yes, so as a way leaning towards the conclusion of our question and answer, I would like to open the floor and give 1 minute to each presenter to either complement Benjamin's responses to the questions that have been placed by the audience, or else for each of you to use this time to convey a concluding message related to your presentation and the general topic of this session. So would you have any final message you would like to deliver?
Sir, may I just pick Shonit here, sir? Sir, am I audible to you?
Yes, you are. I hear some background noise.
Extremely sorry for that, sir. There is some technical glitches. That's why that's.
No worries. I mean, we can hear.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I am agree with Benjamin, sir, because we have a kind of lack of vision or kind of we have lack of political leadership in this COVID crisis, whether that is on a vaccine platform or that is in like a migration platform. So we need particularly the increasing economic nationalism or kind of shrinking globalization. So we need to have more dialogue, particularly on countries like Africa, where like migrant workers or migration is a quite like serious issues. So we need to have more such leaders. We can not only talk, but we those leaders can convert those talks into international action. So my brief point will be this: like determination, decision, and data. So these can be like breaking points or for handling this crisis. Thank you, sir.
I would like to add some more points to.
Yeah, of course, sir.
Hello, who is it there?
This is Junuguru, sir, like Srinivas. I think Shonit sir is done. I mean, right? Yes, sir. If I am not wrong.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah, yes, sir, I am done with my views. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
That's what I am trying to add, like 1-2 points to
Please go ahead.
We need to have like a solid collaboration on international fora, because after particularly 2000, I mean, when Trump came into like power, the structure of international change, because the pro-American and withdrawal of America from global affairs affected a lot in global migration, and they imposed a lot of restrictions on many global South countries to enter in their country. Okay, so unless or until the so-called advanced countries open their gates for exchanging knowledge between global South and global North, so there won't be proper migration, and we need to have a proper protection for these migrant people. So unless or until we give a proper protection for the migrant people, how can we the one country people go to other country and other country people come to our country? No, so how many kids have been kept incarcerated in America? Just like recently when Joe Biden came to power, he asked them to he signed a decree to release those kids from that in jail. So if this kind of policies one country could follow on migrant people, how the globalization can survive, right? So we need actually inclusive global leaders and far-sighted global leaders, and we need to encourage such kind of things to come into power so that things would be all right. And for that matter, in Brazil also, I think if I'm not wrong, please correct me, sir, they also having a lot of problem in migration and relations with America and the Western countries. So we need to have a solid global leaders, then only probably things will be all right. Thank you so much, Neha, for providing this kind of platform to share our thoughts on international migration, and this kind of platform will provide a very good avenue to exchange our global concerns and global issues. And thank you, Pedro sir, for giving this opportunity to share our last minute view on this conference and global migration and global. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to also offer Faroque 1 minute if you want to convey any wrap-up message. Faroque, do you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. Basically, the discourse of migration in today's world is, I think, from my presentation perspective, what I was focusing on low-skill migration. It's the overall, the whole world now facing these challenges. So I'm not taking the position on the discussion of Benjamin or those presenters, but I'm focusing on my own presentation. I was talking that some question here, psychological status of migrants in host countries. So this is the main indicator to consider the low-skill migrants as a human. Right now, we are not considering the low-skill migrant as a human still now. Their life is not really life. So now the question of the psychological status and their rights, even they are not aware about the psychological problem. They are not aware about their rights. So this could be relevant to the discussion of migration or discourse of migration. And thank you everyone, and it's really nice team for arranging this most talk topic and the most burning issue in today's world regarding the international migration. Thank you.
Thank you, Faroque, very much. Neha, would you like to share some final words?
Thanks, Pedro, and thank you, co-panelists. It has been an absolute pleasure to be part of this panel. I just wanted to sort of conclude in line with answering to some of the questions that have also come up through our YouTube channel, I guess. One thing that we need to first and foremost take into consideration, I feel, is how within our discourse and how we speak, we are actually creating or recreating or re-emphasizing the inequalities that exist. I think there needs to be a concerted effort that we need to put forth into really redefining what we mean by safe migration for all, and a migration that's beneficial for all and that's productive for all. Just in line of, I guess, like in terms of moving forward, one of the key challenges that lies ahead for all of us, and which is perhaps like the starting point to really ensuring the protection of rights of every human being in on the move, is to create regular pathways. Several studies that we've have conducted have pointed towards how restrictive policies only lead to increased vulnerabilities for people on the move. So we need to create more regular pathways to ensure social protection of migrant workers or migrants in general, and their access to decent working and living conditions. Another key aspect that we need to focus on moving forward is also the fact that, you know, amongst the 273 million migrants, majority of them are economic migrants, and we need to rethink how labor markets are structured as well, whereby we try and put in effort to reduce like underground labor markets. To do that, we need to have mechanisms where we can ensure application of laws, that there needs to be stronger labor inspection systems, that employers or all the actors involved in the migration cycle need to be held more accountable. We need to create more open and regulated labor markets which have efficient oversight. And I think going back to what Mr. Benjamin said earlier, there needs to be a political willingness amongst all the countries involved to really ensure that mobility is productive for all. Thank you very much, Pedro.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you very much. Now, Shreelaxmi, would you like to make some final remarks?
Actually, sir, I will take up some questions there in the YouTube chat, and I will conclude my remarks. First thing, that how to make a migrant benefit for trade. I think we have to understand that migrants are human. When we treat human as human, and their rights are rights, then I think it is benefitable for everything. And secondly, global warming and the concern of immigration policy of the upcoming half century, I would say global warming has already been impacting the migration. If you see the countries of Latin America or the island countries, majority of migration are happening because of climate change. And the greatest concern for the post-COVID war or for the upcoming half century is actually very difficult. You know, we can't see the future because COVID has not been gone. And we have two things in our mind, that the post-COVID war could be more difficult because in terms of labor policies or the restriction policy of the different government. Secondly, maybe will be a shortage of labor. Maybe, we can't say. And if there will be a shortage of labor, then again, the more of human trafficking, the more of smuggling will happen. So in international law point of view, it's going to be much more difficult than it is now. So I will also agree that we need a political will. It's because till the time the state and the stakeholders, policymakers do not feel these the problem of migrant as a problem with their own people, till that time it is very difficult for all of us to think that there will be safe, regular, and pathways for migration. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Those are very important words. And well, I apologize for rushing you all with the time, but you've all done great and managed to convey very complex ideas about a very challenging phenomena in a rather limited time. So I thank you tremendously for that. I believe everybody has had a chance to respond to questions or convey a final remark. Hence, I'd like to briefly have my 1 minute as well to wrap up some perceptions about today's panel. I think it was a very interesting panel in the way it was structured, because we started with 3 presenters discussing on the phenomena of migration and how complex it is and how different it is. And, you know, and they shed a lot of light into the complexities of these two possibilities. In theory, it can be very good, and it can be good for host countries, for home countries. It can boost the economy, it can boost development. But for that to take place, there needs to be coordinated efforts from across the countries. And as Benjamin reminded, there also needs to be strategical leadership within each country. And, you know, and what followed were the final 3 presentations where we saw what's already there in terms of global legislation, and, you know, what is the agenda, what else should be built to best discipline the way this phenomenon occur. And again, remembering this phenomenon is not one, but it's many. There is immigration that is elite immigration, people who fly, who live abroad for better earnings, for much better earnings, and who engage on decent work. But there are also people who immigrate illegally, that are refugees. There's a whole plethora of varieties of migration, and therefore the legal framework to discipline that needs to be equally complex to accommodate each of those possibilities. I mean, we never expected to cover everything that there is to discuss on migration on this session, but I think we managed to raise a few important points, and I would advise both attendants and presenters to try and keep on touch with each other and to further develop their ideas, and to keep investigating this phenomenon, which is also going through a landmark shifting process. The COVID has changed a lot of views, a lot of perceptions, has laid bare what are the negative externalities that a country is expected to harvest if this country doesn't cover migrant workers, doesn't provide minimum rights and guarantees. So let's stay tuned with the upcoming geopolitical events, and let's evolve our thoughts and contributions. I thank you very much. I thank NIS for organizing this important event, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
so much. Thank you.
Distinguished speaker, chair, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this particular session, and it is my honor to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of NIICE to all those who have graced us with their presence and contributed their parts to make this event a resounding success. First of all, I would like to express our sincere gratitude and thanks to Sir Pedro for agreeing to chair this particular session. Our sincere thanks also goes to all the speakers for being a part of this particular event and delivering such comprehensive and convincing presentations in a very short span of time. We are really honored to have you all with us today, and we would also like to acknowledge our gratitude to our friends from the diplomatic community, experts, academia, media, and different organizations. Finally, I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for our audience who participated in the webinar and those who are watching us live on our YouTube channel. Thank you for your valuable time and attention, and for making this event productive with your questions. We're truly honored to have you all with us this evening, morning or afternoon, and hope to stay connected in future as well. It's really been a pleasure. Also, do join us in our next session. Thank you.
Thank you.